Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm here with Adam Posner, a founder and president of NHP Talent Group and the creator and host of the ThePOZcast. Am I saying everything right here?
You got it. You got it, Karim. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for accepting this invite and joining us on this podcast or video series about work is not working. And I think it's a good start to just say work is not working for so many people. But I would love to hear your thoughts about what do you think about when I say work is not working?
It's a really interesting statement, and I think I bring a pretty unique perspective. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into my background, but I'll give everyone the TLDR, as the kids are saying these days. Born and raised New Yorker, the first 15 years of my career I spent working in advertising and marketing. I've worked at big companies like American Express, SiriusXM, ad agencies in New York like VaynerMedia for the great Gary Vaynerchuk. So I have worked in digital strategy. So I have worked in the marketing and advertising world before pivoting about 6 years ago into recruiting. So now I recruit for roles in marketing and advertising, many that I used to work in. So it's a very interesting perspective that I have when I think about working, not working. I could think about and talk about what working from the folks in the roles. And I could also talk about working, not working from the perspective of a recruiter, someone who has their finger on the pulse of what's happening in talent today going into Q4 of 2021.
I love it. So maybe let's talk about the two angles from the recruiter perspective and maybe actually three perspectives, the employee perspective, the employee perspective, and the recruiter perspective. Where do you see the gap and what are the main challenges on each of these sides?
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty broad question. I think that the real interesting, if we're looking at it from a 30,000 foot view right now, the power has shifted to the employee. The decision-making, where you want to work, how long you want to work. The power has shifted. If you think about the history of modern working since the early 1900s, and we shifted to now, even in the concept of the 9 to 5, the 9 to 5, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm not an expert in workplace history, but it was really created around the idea of assembly line in factories and industrialization, having a standard amount of time that people had to work during that time. Now you fast forward to 2021, people could work anytime, anywhere. And I think the real true shift of successful companies that are doing well are the ones that shifted from output instead of hours.
Absolutely.
I don't care where, when, how you work, as long as you're getting the work done. And the companies that embrace that are the ones that are winning. And that's what I'm seeing from the vantage point of a recruiter, someone who works directly with companies, someone who works directly with candidates, and someone who has worked, for the past 20 years, knowing about those 9 to 5s. I mean, I go back to some of my earlier jobs in big companies. I'm not going to name them out here, where it would almost be a badge of honor, Karim, to stay late, even if you had nothing to do, just so you could have the optics of someone who appears to be loyal and working late. That's gone out the window. The idea of work-life balance has now shifted to the concept of work-life harmony, bringing it all together.
I love how you speak about work-life harmony and not just like this work-life balance. People want to be disconnected from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. the day after, but they are actually thinking the whole time when they are like respecting this 9 to 5 and then disconnecting on the weekend. So where do you see actually this harmony happening and who pushes for this harmony today? Is it something that, as you said at the start, the employee is controlling so he can ask for or they can ask for, or is it the companies themselves that they need to be pushing for to attract the right people there today?
I think it goes back to that word harmony. I think the companies that get it are attracting the right people who want it. There are plenty of companies, and let's take a backtrack for a minute. There are companies and industries where there are certain working hours. Maybe if you're working in finance or the stock market where there's certain hours you have to work. Maybe you're working in an industrial, blue collar type of industry where that makes sense. But there's so many jobs now in the digital age where, again, it goes back to the idea of output versus hours. As long as I'm getting done what needs to be done when it needs to be done by, who the heck cares where, when, and how it's getting done?
I love it. I think let's talk about digital companies and people who are able to work from home, able to work just behind a laptop their entire day. And I think I just want to go back to this topic where you said the work has shifted. We moved from the industrialization or the factory to today, where we have actually a different problem. So we moved from kind of like the physical risk at work to today, the burnout and the mental risk. And that's actually much more heavy on people. But where do you see this stronger in the digital companies, and how do you feel about it?
I think that burnout is more real in the digital companies is because we're more accessible. Because we have this device in our hand,
What is that?
We're able to be accessible. And it's also, I think, that a lot of us are to blame for not setting the expectations of boundaries, not setting boundaries. And I think that's one of the things I talk to a lot of new employees about, setting boundaries early on in a new job, not responding to an email 2 minutes after somebody sends it to you when you leave work or when the workday is over, and establishing those boundaries. For example, and the boundaries shift right now. I'm not even saying like 6 p.m. I'm done, but let's just use that for an example. If I set the boundaries early, that every day my team knows that from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m., that's my family time. I'm putting my phone down. I'm not answering anything. And then at 10 p.m., when my kids are asleep and everything, I am going to check my phone. I'm going to see if there's anything urgent. If there's anything urgent, I'll respond to it. They understand that I might get to it. And if it's not urgent, it's going to wait till the next day. Setting expectations and managing boundaries. But the burnout becomes when people don't set those boundaries and they're always on. That means their brain is always thinking. They're not able to separate work from personal life. They're not able to give attention to their family. They're not able to be present for their loved ones. And that's what causes burnout. It's an endless vicious cycle.
Yeah, and the creativity is hit afterwards. Everything is impacted. So talking about talent, and when you're looking at new profiles to connect businesses with people, how do you see, or let me think about this question a bit first, but basically, where do you get the best talents when you are hiring? Are they before the burnout? Are they sometimes actually just giving up on their companies and just want to move forward? Or do you just catch them a bit earlier in the journey?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I generally think, well, let's take a step back here and give everyone a little bit of the talent landscape. There's two types of candidates. There's active candidates and passive candidates. Active candidates are candidates out in the marketplace who are actively looking for new opportunities. Either they're not happy in their current job or they're out of work. A passive candidate is somebody who is currently working, who is not looking for a new job, and you get their attention. That's what real recruiters are paid for.
Yeah, I like that. So are companies asking more for the passive candidates then?
Yes. Well, generally speaking, yes. They want somebody, it's actually funny. They actually want somebody who's happy in their job, right? They want somebody who's content. They want somebody who's doing great. They want somebody who's at a target company. So generally speaking, yes. But I think it's really shifted, especially in this market right now, where it's a very candidate-driven market, meaning that there are more open jobs. And it's crazy because there's so many people that say they're out of work. So you have to think about that. It's industry specific. But so if we're talking about digital marketing, media, advertising, direct-to-consumer marketing, right now there are more open jobs than candidates available. And that gets into the conversation, which we're about to, which a lot of people are calling the great resignation, but I call it the great migration. And there's a big difference in those two words right there. The great migration, the great resignation is implying that people are just quitting. And I think that's a little bit of a buzzword. I think here and there you're hearing people do that, but I really don't see too many people that just say, you know what? I hate what I'm doing. I'm quitting and I have nothing lined up right now. And, you know, I have enough money in the bank that I don't give a crap. And I could, no. The reality is that most people, listen, the old adage is true. The best time to find a new job is when you have a job, because you have the financial security there. And that's really important. Are there people that in the last 2 years during the pandemic have doubled down on their passion, on their side hustle, their projects, and are quitting? For sure. Are those numbers overwhelming? Maybe over-indexing in the past, but I don't think it's a great, I think it's more of a buzzworthy, newsworthy type of story. But what's really going to happen is a great migration. And here's how I take a look at that. In the last 2 years, folks have been working at home, most of us, and they're able to really strip away a lot of the stuff about the office. They're able to take a look at the work, their coworkers, they're feeling valued. And those that are saying no, they're going to be looking for new opportunities. And what's going to happen specifically here in the States, this weekend coming up is Labor Day, which is a mark on the calendar, which means the end of summertime. People have just finished taking their summer holiday. They've had work from home, the beaches, the lake house, wherever. They've had time to reflect with their family. After the Labor Day, people are going to be like, okay, the end of the year is coming. Kids are back at school. Let's really think about my job, what I'm doing here. And people are going to start looking for those new opportunities. So I look at it more as the great migration instead of the great resignation. Now, that's just my point of view. from the viewpoint of an actual recruiter who sees this every single day.
I love it. Do you think the migration also involves a shift in your industry as well? So do you see people hiring, I don't know, in like digitization of retail from tech companies? Are you seeing these interaction between different industries when when companies are looking at different profiles?
It really depends on the company. I think generally speaking, and this goes back to one of those other things that we hear a lot about, hire for character, train for skill. At the end of the day, the companies that I'm hiring for want somebody at a bare minimum with the skills that they need for that position, especially at mid to senior levels. No one's has the time to train. People are working from home. They're trying to manage their life. You think I want to try to train somebody fully up where they need to be versus hiring someone at that level? So I don't think we're seeing a lot of that. I think that there are transferable skills, but at the end of the day, my clients are paying me and most recruiters to find folks that have the skills. And then the interview process, we're going to suss out the personality and character, the soft skills that are needed for that job that are going to fit in.
Where do you see the difference between hiring for skills versus hiring for potential?
I think at lower levels.
Lower level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also at a lower level, you have more of an aptitude, more of a bandwidth and ability to hire folks that may be transferring or pivoting in careers, and you could train up. For example, I pivoted at the age of 37 into recruiting without having the recruiting background, because that industry, it was a sales role. It was less risk on the company because I wasn't making a high salary. It was all forward potential because it was a sales job.
Absolutely. What is your advice for people who are actually active on the market, and how they should act to become the closest possible to passive in some ways?
Be close as possible to passive.
I mean, to succeed, because obviously when you are on the market, you're very active, and sometimes you're overactive.
Right. I think there is a thing to be mindful, but I also think that could be a competitive advantage. If you are a highly qualified candidate and you want to create a demand for you, especially in this market right now. And here's the deal. If you're a candidate, you should be taking advantage of a candidate-driven market. It's going to give you an opportunity to demand a higher income, a higher salary. And this is a great opportunity for that. So I don't knock candidates right now that are asking for a much higher compensation than maybe they should be calibrated at, but they have to be mindful because two things are going to happen. A lot of companies right now are overpaying for particular roles. And if you're a candidate, you're like, that's awesome. I just got more money now than I would never ever have because I changed roles. But here's what's going to happen. 6, 8, 10, 12 months down the road, after you're in this new role, it's time for your performance review.
Yeah.
And let's just say you did a great job. Maybe that company's not going to give you a raise or a very, very small raise because they just already paying you higher than market. So what's going to happen? Karim, you didn't give me my raise. Now I'm upset. Well, as a company owner, let me tell you something. I'm already overpaying you budget. I can't afford to give you a raise. So we're going to see the great recalibration towards the back half of 2022. Mark my words on this. A great recalibration is about to happen. Now, let's take another look at that. Let's unpack that for a moment here. Let's just say that I'm currently at a manager level, whatever role I'm in. My next stop in my career would be senior manager, then director. But now during this candidate-driven market, companies are jumping and they're offering me director level roles, director level salary. So what's going to happen? Some folks, a very small percentage, are able to level up to that. They're going to step up, they're going to kick butt, they're going to do great, and they'll perform at that direct level. But let's be honest, the majority of people, that's a big gap. That's maybe jumping 6 or 7 years of experience. So what's going to happen during the great recalibration? When the rubber hits the road, companies are going to see that those folks that they just hired and paid a ton for that are too junior may not be right for the role. And all those people that waited for the great migration, those real true directors, are now applying for those roles. Guess who's out the door? Now, these are just predictions, but I've had this conversation with a lot of folks and they're like, that's pretty logical. So we'll see what happens there. What do you think?
We're starting
Does
to see
that make sense? I mean, do I sound half intelligent there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're starting to see these things. And I think they are like, there's work on the candidate side, but the employer side and the employee side here, because I think obviously it's a contract. It's a mutual agreement between companies and employees. And this contract can be broken at any time. Right. And I think companies need to put so much effort into the relationship as much as the employee 100%. Themselves. So maybe with that, like there is a topic, which is the great resignation could happen because people are not feeling rewarded. Valued. That's one. But the second one is actually valued. and value comes to decision making. Do I have the power in a company to decide? Do I have the power to innovate? Do I have the power to create? Do you see these conversations happening with the 100%. Candidates as well?
100%. So one of the core skills that I learned in the early days of a recruiter from my recruitment mentor, a gentleman by the name of Tom Hall at Onward Search, he taught me the first thing when getting on the phone with a candidate is to understand their motivations. Understand why Karim is looking for a new job. Is it just money? Okay. Now that I know when I'm going through the process here, I know what's going to motivate him. It's going to be the money. Is he not feeling valued in his job? Is he looking to pivot? Is he looking for, maybe he wants to manage people, or maybe at this stage of his career, every job that he has, they're throwing people on him for people management, and he doesn't want to manage people. Maybe he just wants to be an individual contributor, and he doesn't have that ability in his company. But once you understand those motivators, the whys, then you'll be able to figure out the right job and the right path for that individual.
It's always going back to the why, whether you are looking for someone or working with someone or a company trying to go to the next level. There's always this why sometimes missing in all of these conversations. Have you worked with companies that have been attracting people just because of their why?
Yes. There are companies that do a really good job of employer branding. And it's not done per se by the company itself, but it's done by the employees who act as brand ambassadors. And if that could happen organically, that is a magical formula. Think about all those companies that we think are great places to work. Right? Just think of those names and think about the people that work there. They're usually the biggest fans, the biggest advocates, spreading the word. When you hear that your friend works at a great company, you're like, I want to work there.
Yeah.
And in fact, going back to 2019. I love working at this place because it was a really cool office. Everyone treated each other nice. People were fun to hang out with. They had, ping pong tables and great snacks and food. And now it's like, no, this company is great because they have an extremely flexible remote work from home policy. I can work anywhere in the world. I have a clear path in my career that's outlined for me, and I have options and I have accountability, and I have the ability to provide feedback in an open and honest format where I'm not going to be knocked if I give negative feedback to a company. That's what people look for in 2021 versus 2019.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the first 5 minutes with every new candidate in interview, I hear the word Glassdoor. I checked your Glassdoor and this is what I found. And that's why I got excited.
Let's talk about Glassdoor for a quick second there. In my opinion, as a recruiter, Glassdoor is a repository of disgruntled candidates. It's like bad reviews on Yelp for restaurants. There's significantly more people that are going to raise their hand and complain than raise their hand and give good reviews. So let's be honest about that. But there is truth to a lot of what's out there. So yes, I agree.
That's a very good maybe segue to get you closer to your dinner, because we talked about restaurants. But maybe like what is the advice that you want to give to employees, to companies, and also to recruitment companies as well, on the great resignation, the great calibration, and the great migration in the future? And what is your biggest prediction? Let's keep this one for the last one, but think about it. What is your biggest prediction for 2022 and moving beyond that? What would happen in the world?
Yes, so I think first and foremost that regardless if you're an employee, a candidate, a manager, you manage people, or you're in the market yourself, I think it comes down to communication. Because listen, we're not able to be physically together. So how do we ensure communication remotely? People are getting fatigued, right? Look early in the pandemic, everyone's all on Zoom and WhatsApp and Slack and Microsoft Teams and all the other things. People are fatigued. And I think a lot of people right now are missing that in-office chat, being able to walk into Karim's office and have a chat, or Karim and Adam going out for lunch or having a drink after work. And that's when you're missing that real connection in the workplace. So I think first and foremost, that has to be critical. Having that consistent loop with the people on your team, the people that you work with, the people in your company, and figuring out how to do that and how to bring the online back to offline. Old school, pick up the phone, figure it out. We're going to get there. So I think that's number one. I think that's really going to ensure I think that's where really a lot of companies are falling off right now, because they went remote quickly. They thought they were adapting to it, and then they got complacent, and now things are falling through the cracks. So I think you really have to be mindful of that. Predictions, and I think I alluded to this earlier, the great migration is going to happen. People are going to be shifting jobs either within their industry, or they're going to be leaving their industry. I guess you could call it the resignation, but I say migrating to following their passion.
Yeah, and I guess like the difference was, again, as you said, it is resignation is maybe just leaving and then getting this burnout and say, I'm gonna build a farm and start raising chicken and cows.
Right. I want to be an oat milk. I want to be an oat milk farmer.
That works very well right now, and a lot of people would buy it. So,
but maybe then they go into it, and but then they have this idea, and then they have no idea what it's like to raise oats. No, I'm kidding. Right? How do you milk an oat? Right? But that's what I'm saying. People are following their passions, maybe jumping too quickly, and I applaud it. Right? If this is what it took for you to be happy in life, right? You have one shot at this. You know what? If it doesn't work, you could go back to doing digital marketing or whatever you're doing, but give it a shot.
It's ultimately all about balance. And I think as long as you did not find this balance in life between what you want to do for work and what you enjoy most, you will be always not settling and looking for the next thing. Whether you are actually in 2022 or 2025 or even like 2000, if you're not settled and finding this balance as a person, you will be always leaving jobs and changing maybe.
Yeah. I mean, there's folks out there that are just never going to be happy. There's folks out there that are always chasing the grass is always greener on the other side, which is not true. And then there's the folks that find true passion, harmony, and happiness in their jobs. And then there's other folks too who have no problem going to a job, and maybe they don't love it, but it provides for their family, it gets things done, and they're able to separate and have the boundaries between that work-life harmony. Right? It's hard. I think another problem is I think a lot of people are making very broad general assumptions. Like we talk about unemployment. Of course, there was huge unemployment in tourism, hospitality, travel, retail, all those sectors during the pandemic. But you know where there was not? Direct-to-consumer marketing, performance marketing, digital media marketing, advertising. Those jobs are hard to fill right now for us recruiters.
They are so hard to fill anywhere in the world.
Let's be careful when we tell the right story here and not overgeneralize.
Absolutely. And I think just ending with being happy, I guess it's extremely important to maybe tell this again, is the only job it's not about the job. It's not about a position. It's about yourself. And if you are happy with yourself, and again, finding what you want as a person, you will be happy anywhere. And you will be forcing the employer to make you happy. You will be forcing anyone around you to make you happy because you know what you want, and you will be pushing forward to get what you want. That's my philosophy in life, that you are the only person that you make yourself happy.
Of course. I mean, it's your story. You're the one who's writing it, and you're the one responsible for it. I think that people really need to take true ownership of their career. Some people say, be the CEO of your career in life. Just own it. You have no one to blame for your path in life, your career, and your happiness but yourself. You have complete control over it. So take that control and own it and figure it out.
I love it. That was amazing. I love the ending. And I really want to thank you for the opportunity of jumping on this chat with me.
Well, likewise.
I hope this will help some people make their work again in some ways. So let's see. And thank you so much.
Karim, thank you so much for having me. And everyone out there, you please find me on LinkedIn. You can check us out at ThePOZcast.com and NHP Talent Group.com.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you for having me, Karim.